Those who like to follow in the book, page 140. Love divine, all love excelling, joy of heaven to earth come down, fixing the sight, humble dwelling, of thy faithful mercy's crown. Jesus, thou art all compassion, pure unbounded love thou art. Visit us with thy salvation, and her every trembling heart. Breathe, oh, breathe thy loving spirit into every troubled breast. Let us all in thee inherit, let us find the promised rest. Take away the love of sin, take our load of guilt away, and the work of thy beginning bring us to eternal day. Finished in thy new creation, pure unspotted may we be. Let us see our whole salvation perfectly secured by thee. Change from glory into glory, till in heaven we take our place, till we cast our crowns before thee, lost in wonder, love, and praise. Page 148. I keep falling in love with him over and over and over and over again. I keep falling in love with him over and over and over and over again. He gets sweeter and sweeter as the days go by. Oh, what a love between my Lord and I. Keep falling in love with him over and over and over and over again. He keeps blessing me over and over and over and over and over again. He keeps blessing me over and over and over and over and over again. He gets sweeter and sweeter as the days go by. Oh, what a love between my Lord and I. Keep falling in love with him over and over and over and over again. He keeps blessing me over and over and over and over and over again. He keeps blessing me over and over and over and over and over again. He gets sweeter and sweeter as the days go by. Oh, what a love between my Lord and I. Keep falling in love with him over and over and over and over again. The song before Brother Billy gets up here and as he explained it, talk for a little bit. 535. I'm in the way, the bright and shining way. I'm in the glory land way. Telling the world that Jesus saved today. Yes, I'm in the glory land way. I'm in the glory land, glory land. Soon I shall see him in that home above. I'm in the glory land, glory land. I'm in the glory land, glory land. I'm in the glory land, glory land. Heaven is nearer and the way home is clearer, for I'm in the glory land, glory land. 9:05 will be the invitation song.
Okay, 93, let's go. She and I took a left this morning when she took a right. Okay, y'all, I like the time of the year we're coming into, don't y'all? I like it. There's an attitude that sort of wells up this time of the year. Of course, I think Thanksgiving is a very good holiday. I think we need to be Thanksgiving all the time, and I think Christians do, but the country at large doing it, I think it's a good thing. Coming off of that, we're going into a time when people tend to become a lot nicer. Do you all sense that? People are more caring. They open up their pocketbooks and help the less fortunate. People are smiling more than they're frowning. Some of us individual frowners. It's just the way our faces are made. It seems like with the Christmas season coming on, we tend to take a little different attitude. Do y'all sense that, or am I out of touch there? I don't think so. I see some heads nodding. Of course, some of it is based on and around a religious event, allegedly, that happened on December the 25th. And I know there's a big group of people that by and large understand that didn't happen on December the 25th, most likely. I think most scholars agree that later down in the winter time, early spring, is when the shepherds were actually out in the field with flocks, and therefore most likely when Christ was born. We're not here to argue that, it doesn't matter too much. But the little fellers gonna go off to school. That's after the Thanksgiving break, and they're gonna go down there. And I know when I went to school, some of y'all think I did, but I did a long time ago. But I went to school, and we would have, of course, we'd have a little Thanksgiving program, particularly in grade school, and then we'd have a Christmas program. Well, we did that. And we put on plays, and the plays would be centered around what? Christmas. Oh, yeah, a nativity scene. And who would be involved in the nativity scene besides Joseph and Mary and the baby? The who? The wise men, that's right. That's absolutely true. Pardon? Yeah, we're gonna get there. Teresa's got a nativity scene. I've been putting it up every year, and I sort of grit my teeth when I do it because we put it out in the front yard for all the world to see. So there we have Joseph and Mary and the baby. Build a little hut that they gotta be in, the stable. Recreate the stable. It's a real small stable, but it's the stable. And then guess who's standing right there beside them? The wise men. And the camels, and the sheep, and the donkey. Yeah. But that's what we do. We're entering that season. And that's an accepted thing, the nativity scene, the presence of three wise men. But the Bible doesn't really teach that, does it? It really doesn't. And I want to find the controller for this machine because I just realized it's not here. Where is that? Back there? Yeah, that's what I need. How do you know my thing? I heard that. I guess it's up here. I'm sorry. No, I missed it. Got it. Okay. With that said, we're going to look at these first few verses of Matthew 2. Now, the backdrop for this is the first chapter or two in the book of Luke, particularly the second chapter. But we're not going to go there necessarily. Let's read these verses together and let's just consider it. Now, this is the King James, because it's easy for me to put the King James on his drive, okay? I use the NIV a lot. And I don't like the way this even starts out. But the NIV, chapter 2, verse 1, would say, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. It starts out, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea. After, okay? We don't struggle with that. The King James is a good version, but it's like any of them. You have to be careful with it. It kind of leads you. Because it starts out with now when Jesus was born. You get the inference of the present time, and that's what I'm trying to point out. But I'm not saying it's inaccurate. It's just it can lead you. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him. When Herod the king heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem was troubled with him. That's kind of interesting. Am I too loud? Do I need to move this down?
I can change it.
Speak up. Okay, and when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. And they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet. Now here's a quotation from Micah, the 5th chapter, verse 2. And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. That's the quotation. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also. And when they heard the king, they departed, and lo, that star is coming in. The star which they saw in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. That's not an ordinary star. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, Al likes to highlight that, doesn't he? They saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. That was the whole intent. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed unto their own country another way. Interesting features of this story that we would like to address. Interesting features. What Matthew doesn't tell us. We got a lot of stuff out there that Matthew didn't tell. You just read the verses with me. So you know everything that was said about this subject. And when you drift away from what was said in these 12 verses, then you're conjecture or opinion. Okay, and that's largely where it's at. Who exactly were these wise men from the east? Did it tell us? Some say they were a group of priests from Persia. Others believe they were astrologers from Babylon. What do we know? We know all about the East. And it ends there. That's what we know, okay? East. And we got to stick with that. How many were there? Pardon?
2 or more.
Yeah. Why is it 2 or more?
That's what it says.
It says wise men is plural. It ends there. It doesn't tell us anything else. It just says wise men from the east. How many were there? No actual numbers given. But three types of gifts were mentioned in the 11th verse that we just read. But the quantity of the gifts does not necessarily imply the quantity of the givers. Okay? Don't have anything to do with it. They brought three different items. We accept that. But the Bible doesn't tell us. The only thing we know about the number is that it was men, plural. That's all we know. Everything else is conjecture and dug up from somewhere somehow. You'll be surprised at all the stuff that I've come across looking at this. A little bit about the star. Was it actually a star? What about that star? That star got my attention. It didn't take long. I mean, it's an unusual star. I know all about some things in life, and nowhere in that group of things that I have that you could probably put in a thimble do I know anything about stars and astrology, okay? It's not there, but I do know this, and I learned it in school. You ever use a plumb bob? Do we know what a plumb bob is? It's something you hang in the divine center or something, you know. Can you really read a plumb bob if it's 6 foot off the ground? How about 3 feet? How about down there about 2 or 3 inches above the target? Huh? How about that? We got that? We understand that? Well, now let's talk about this star for just a minute. The stars that I see in the sky, how far up there are they? I have not a clue. But it's thousands, if not millions of miles. But the star we read about there, did you hear what he said? It says that it led them to the very spot where the Christ child was. So this is not an ordinary star, because when I look up in the sky at night, particularly right above me, there's a million stars up there, or thousands of them, and they all appear to be more or less directly over me. So it wasn't any of them stars that we're talking about. We're talking about another star. Now that's what we're talking about. Again, my opinion here now, but we wondered kind of off what the Bible says in terms of this star. Was it the planet Jupiter? That's often associated with the birth of King Jupiter. This is in astrology and mythology of the Greeks and the Romans and all that kind of stuff. In fact, the definition of Jupiter by the Greek is sky father. Now you're a whole lot smarter. Sky father. Greek. The god of sky, thunder, and king of gods. That's Roman mythology. So Jupiter come into play. Some said that it was actually 2 stars. I don't know why all this, but I'll go through it with you just to show you how far it's gone. 2 stars. They actually went back and did some calculations, and 2 planets, Jupiter being one of them, and another planet, were very, very, very close together about that time, 2,000 years ago. And then when they rose together in the east, they would be exceptionally bright. And that's probably what it was. Well, that's okay. I won't argue with that. But did Jupiter and that other planet come down low and stay real close together and get right over that Christ child? Not likely. So let's just blow that off and go on. None of that. Another question. How did these wise men connect the star with the birth of the King of the Jews? How did that happen?
Didn't it say God told them? Wasn't it an angel?
They might have been looking for it. They were looking, they had some kind of
They had something, some prophecy
idea.
somewhere.
They had what?
They obviously had some prophecy somewhere.
Where is it?
numbers.
Okay, fair enough.
What was the number?
Fair enough.
I saw it start.
You saw a star? That was Balaam prophesied.
Yes.
Numbers, 24th chapter, I believe it's verse 17. That's a wrong application. And it does talk about the Star of David, or a star. But that's not it. I'm going to give you the answer. It's easy. It's right before you. I bet even Rahab knows it. We don't know. We don't know. We're not privileged to be told that. Now, would you like to do some guessing? You know, we can do that. But we have no idea how these wise men knew to watch for a star rising in the east, the significance of it, nor how that star managed to stay low enough, now I'm going to go back to that, so that they knew exactly which house to go to. It had to be pretty low, plumb bob situation. If it's up our 8 or 10, 20 feet, you're not sure on the ground where to go. But if it's low enough, they were able to go there. And we don't know all of that. We don't know. Likely, or just falling out in the house of what he mentioned there about God, undoubtedly, God was involved. That's the only way through. Somehow or another, these men, maybe they had been taught by some Jewish people back during one of the dispersions or something like that, and they took it to heart, and they truly began to seek, and God took over. And that's my best guess. But I'm only guessing, because I don't know. But look at the legends that have arisen from all of this that Matthew doesn't say.
One second.
Yes, sir.
Verse 12,
Yes, sir.
them being warned, divinely warned in a dream,
Yeah.
that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way. So God was connected in to them.
Oh, I'm with you on that. I'm with you. Are we talking about a star? Who put the star?
Well,
Who gave us the information and brought the star? God was there. We got that. But I don't know how they come about the information. I just don't know. But you're right. God is no doubt involved. All right. What Matthew doesn't tell us, and yet what you run into out there. First of all, there were 3 kings. And if you don't believe that, there's a song, the We Three Kings from the Orient. And there's it sang during the Christmas season. It's a very popular song. That song can't be wrong. Can't be. It's got to be right. In fact, you can find information that will give you the names. I have the names of those 3 wise men. Their names are Melchior, Balthazar, and Caspar. That's their names. Not a verse anywhere on earth to hang that on. And it also goes on, of course, to say that they actually visited baby Jesus together with the shepherds the night before. So my nativity scene must be right. No, it's not right. But that's what the world would have us to believe. Matthew chapter 2, verse 1. Let's look at it again. Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem, Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, 3 wise men came from the east to Jerusalem. That's all we know, that they came. If we look at the next verse of Herod, it says, Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceedingly wroth. He sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and all the coast thereof from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. I don't know how to interpret that exactly, but the 2 years have always kind of thumped me. Like, why 2 years? Why? If the Christ child, this is Monday morning, and he was born on Saturday night, why are we going 2 years?
How long did the wise men travel?
Oh, it doesn't matter. The ambiguity emerges here, though. That's where it's at. 2 years is suggesting that there's a little ambiguity, a little not so sure, some time lapse there, and that's why I say the 2 did not meet together. And of course, then there's a house verse, and he would call me down if I didn't get you this
Can
verse.
I have a
Well,
question?
Yes, ma'am.
It says now after as well in the first verse.
Who?
New King James says.
The New King James.
Says now after Jesus.
Yeah, I wasn't mocking the King James. I was just pointing out that if you read some of the different translations, you can come away with slightly
If
different.
King James leads you up to in the house, that means they weren't still in the manger.
Yeah, I get that, but not in verse 1. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, of course, we know that this is all in God's plan, but the wise men were following the star, and you have so eloquently proven to me that the star was right over the house.
That's the way I see it.
Well, I believe that's, but why did they go to the king and say, where is this Christ child? We want to go worship him.
Well, that's a good question, but if you'll read it, we can go back and look at it a minute ago. It appears that maybe at a point the star wasn't there. The star led them to Jerusalem area. And because it picks up when they leave Herod, they see the star again. It mentions it there. That you can read that and see that. It's like it might have reappeared or something. I'm not sure. I can't get there. I just know that you're right. Your question is right. What she's asking is if there was a star all the time leading them directly, why did they wind up in Herod's palace or asking Herod about it? Good question. Can't answer. Don't know. All right. What was I saying before I said that? Let's, and when they were come to the house, that's where I was at, they saw the young child and Mary, his mother, fell down and worshiped him. That was the ultimate mission they had, was to worship the Christ child. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. There's the three. There's the subline, why we had three wise men, but not necessarily. That's what's talking about. Okay. If you go to Luke 2:7, he wasn't in a house. He was wrapped in swaddling clothes, laid in a manger in a stable. We all remember that. And here, they come to a house. You would think they wouldn't confuse the two in the writings. Maybe they did, but I really believe he was born and placed in a manger in a stable, as Luke presents it. And then later, we don't know if it was weeks or months, don't know. But sometime frame later, the wise men appeared, having seen the star and understanding, and how they come to that understanding, I have not a clue. We're not told. We also were told by secular history that all three of them that I just named were baptized by Thomas. Okay, that's also in secular history. I don't know where in the verse they got that. But this is just a little rundown on the three wise men. Let's look at some lessons that we can learn about the three wise men. All right, how about that? Let's see what we can come up with. Easy for fiction to be taken for fact. That's always the case. This is not the first time something like that's happened. What people can do with the story of Jesus, and it seems kind of innocent in a way. If there's such a thing, when we talk about God's Word. But it quickly turns into a problem, especially when we're talking about things relative to our salvation. Making the number of the wise men to be three, the Bible doesn't teach that. I can see how we wind up with that, but the Bible doesn't teach it. Having them visit Jesus in the stable, we understand how that tends to run together, because there's two stories told about the birth of Jesus. One is the shepherds in the field, the Luke account, and the other is the wise men visiting him. And they tend to reach together and marry, and that's why we have what we do. But there are other examples where little things are sort of taken and stretched and massaged into things they are not. For instance, do you know what kind of tree was in the Garden of Eden that was not to be eaten from?
Something with fruit.
Hmm?
I said something with fruit.
Oh, there are some publications you can see, and they describe it as an apple. It's an apple tree.
Palm tree.
A what?
Palm tree.
A plum tree.
That's just as good as the apple tree.
I think it was one of those Bartlett pears. Most pictures
Most
show an apple. Most artists depicting Africa.
It's not popular amongst some certain crowds, and we're certainly that crowd. But an apple tree is often portrayed as a tree in the garden, okay? It is. But that's not biblically accurate in any sense of the word. How about baptism versus sprinkling? See how easy it turns into something serious. I don't know how sprinkling got started exactly. It's got started pretty early. It did. Way back there. Certainly in the 2nd century. Sure did. Maybe somebody was sick and they couldn't expose them to water, or they didn't pneumonia go to take their lives. So maybe they tried to help God out with sprinkling, and then once it happened one time, then it was easy for it to take off. I don't have any clue.
That's how,
You say that's it.
that's it, according to secular history.
Okay. I told you all about going to the little chapel big chapel in Germany when I was over visiting. We went to this great big old 2nd or 3rd century church. It had a baptistry. I was so glad to see that baptistry. I was. I told you about it. It's carved out of stone. And some of us probably wouldn't have fit in it. People were smaller back then. But it had a place for your head and all, but it was fixed such that you would be fully immersed. Fully immersed. And I felt good to see that. Now look at that. They knew what they needed to do. And they carved this thing out of stone. If I was having to chisel it out of stone and sprinkle it would work, whoo, man, I'd have just laid that chisel down. It was days over. They knew that immersion was important. But you can drift from the truth pretty easy, pretty fast. And this is how it happens. We all need to take a lesson from those in Thessalonica. It says, these were more noble than those in Thessalonica in that they received the word with all readiness of mind, search the scripture daily, whether those things were so. That's what we need to do. We need to be careful. This Christmas season, there'll be a lot of stuff done that's good. But if we're not careful, there might be some stuff, and it's going to influence our little guys. That's who's going to get influenced. Our little guys. You and I, and some, we're above this. We know better than this. But it's going to affect some of our little guys. Let's go a little further. We got to get out of here. There may be true servants in unexpected places. Okay? That's another thing that we can learn from this wise men episode. There could be other servants, hidden ones, hidden from our knowledge. Not, you might say, people who are listed on our directories. I don't know where these wise men come from. I don't know what their background is. Yes, God was behind it involved, no doubt. But
They were seeking the Messiah.
pardon?
They were seeking the Messiah.
That's right.
Even Herod knew when they appeared to him that they were seeking the Messiah.
That's right.
Told Isaiah prophesied.
They had the prophets. They had the prophets. Their history on earth maybe is as little known as that of Melchizedek. We know all about him, don't we? We fully understand who he was and what he was about. We got all the answers, right? No, we don't have all the answers.
Got all the answers we need.
I'll give you that. And that applies to them three wise men too. That same statement. We got all we need. How about talking about ones that we have all the answers to? Job, where'd he come from? What's that all about? Wonderful lesson for we Christians. There's so much about Job we don't understand. We're not even sure where the whole event took place. We think it was down in Edom. But there's a lot about Job. Well, there are people that we don't know a lot about. We just get little glimpses into who they are, whatever. What about Jethro? What do we know about Jethro? Can anybody tell me anything about Jethro?
Moses' father-in-law, the Ethiopian.
He's a priest. Priest of the Midian.
Midianites,
What else?
shepherd,
What else? I'm going to exhaust him pretty quick.
Elias, Moses.
Very little do we know about Jethro. He was fixing to run out. We just don't know. And it's okay if we don't know. It's okay. That's what we got to kind of get to. There's some things about these wise men we scratch our heads on and argue with, but my goodness. We must not assume that God's people consist only of those we know about that are listed in our directory. There are a lot of people in this whole world we really have no clue about. How many of y'all read the Christian Chronicle? Let me see a show of hands. Oh, we got to do better than that. The Christian Chronicle. Then if you don't read it, you haven't read The Gospel is for the Poor, have you? Yeah, go ahead, Ray. Ray, he's waking up over there. He's coming alive. Okay. That article involves in part this congregation. Y'all read it. Good article. Do y'all remember, I wasn't here, I was working with the American church at the time. Y'all put a shipping bin out there on the lot. And you filled it up with all kind of things. They even put a tractor in it, didn't you? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
You remember shipping it to Africa, Ghana and Togo and places like that. I don't know exactly where it went, but I know it went over. Well, this article is about that group of Christians over there. Let me read to you something. This is encouraging to me. 3 decades ago, the First Churches of Christ opened its doors in this town of less than 20,000 at Hugh Ayers, northeast of Ghana's coastal capital, Accra. And don't come back and tell me how it's pronounced. Today, that area has expanded to more than 30 congregations with an estimated 5,000 members of the Church of Christ. In this community, this community is far from alone. Churches of Christ are springing up across this part of West Africa. Last year, a 10-day campaign in northern Togo led to 2,800 baptisms. This congregation had a part in that, seeded back years earlier. February campaign was no less breathtaking with 1,537 baptisms. Those people won't speak our language. They don't look like us. They don't live like us. In a lot of ways, they don't think like us. And they're probably blessed for that. But they are Christian brothers. On the day of judgment, they'll be right there with us. If we're so fortunate to hear the words, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant," they'll be right there with us. And you don't know anything about them. There's a whole lot of God's people out there that you know nothing about. So what if you can't really nail these 3 wise men down here? It's 3.
There'll be no people there, I can just.
Well, they're Christians. That says enough. Let's read a verse right here. Nevertheless, the foundation of God standeth sure, having his seal, the Lord knoweth them that are his, and let everyone that nameth the name of Christ depart from iniquity. What does that tell us? It's not anybody that's God-fearing and God-following that the Lord doesn't know about. And you and I may not know a thing about it, but God does. And he knew those wise men, and he wanted to lead those wise men where they could find high ground in their relationship with him. Jesus said this in Matthew 7:8. He says, "For everyone that asketh receiveth, he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened." That's the attitude of the God we serve. And I believe that's how the wise men found Bethlehem, or wherever they went to the Christ child. There it is right there. God's hand was in it. He looked out there. He saw somebody on their knees praying, wishing to serve him, wishing to find that high ground. He found another Cornelius, Acts chapter 10, who was a Gentile, who was, let's say, outside of the law of Christ, and God wanted him saved, so he sent Peter to him. That's how the wise men found the baby Christ, okay? Let's go a little bit further. get out of here by at least 9.
It is not always those who have the most religious privileges who give Christ the most honor. Is that true?
What's the Bible say about difficulties of a rich man getting into heaven compared to a camel going through the eye of a needle? We're in trouble in America, personally. Because we get sidetracked with all the pretties and all the toys and all the spare time. And we misuse our spare time. And we do a lot of things that are going to cost us on Judgment Day. I'm not telling you going to hell. I'm just saying we have to beware. The people in Ghana, Africa don't have anything. They're poor. And all they have to do is get up every day and increase their relationship with the Christ. And they don't have anything blocking or getting away or wasting their time on it. That's why I said a while ago they may well be blessed. Here in this country, who would think that the chief priests and the scribes would never make it to Bethlehem as far as we know? But they didn't, did they? Did any of them go up there to honor the Christ child? Huh? Not that we're aware of. And I think they had an opportunity to do it. I'm going to tell you what, now there's some speculation. Y'all want some rumor? I'll start a rumor. In Luke account, Luke 2, it says that when the angel spoke to the shepherds in the field, I don't mix these two up, he told them what had happened in Bethlehem. And then they witnessed the whole heaven erupting and all this angels singing and praising God. So they decided they were going to go see for themselves. Y'all remember that? So they run down to Bethlehem. It can't be far because they make it there. If you read it and look at it, they make it there that night. They witnessed the Christ child, and then what did they do? Do you remember what they did next?
Told everybody.
There it is. Now, how far is Bethlehem from Jerusalem? 5 miles? That ain't far. Where I'm going is, I kind of want to think that the chief priests and scribes and Pharisees got a little inkling that something went down in Bethlehem that night. That's what I want to think. I can't prove it. I told you, I'm way out on the limb, don't start off fine. But just think about it. You would have thought the ones who held the law closest and allegedly knew it the best, and they knew it, they knew enough to remember what Micah had said in Micah 5th chapter verse 2. They knew that. Why didn't they run down to Bethlehem? The people who should have been the first ones to that birth scene.
The same reason that they wanted to kill him in John chapter 9. They were afraid of losing their faith. That's why it says Jerusalem was troubled. Herod was just afraid of losing his power, just as they were empowered by Herod. They were saying just as afraid.
It was a power thing.
Now, there was Simeon in the temple
Who knew?
praised him,
Yeah. That's true.
but that was another person seeking God's salvation.
That's right. John said this, he came into his own, and his own received him not. Jesus was born there right under the noses of the scribes and Pharisees, the chief priests, and all of the most elite in what would have been knowledge of the old law. And they had an inkling that something that went down or was going down. They had it because they knew about it. Micah 5:2. They don't want nothing to do with it.
They rejected the promise.
They sure did.
And they probably thought just like Herod did that he killed him.
Yeah, they may have. But what we have to be sure is that we don't get caught up in the same thing. We need to be careful. We just don't judge the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the chief priests. Let's get busy and make sure we don't slip up. That's what I want us to do. Let's go. Knowledge does not necessarily equate to salvation. If there's anybody who would have known that Christ child was coming, It should not have been the wise people way over to the east, wherever they come from. It should have been the chief priests, scribes, Pharisees. They missed it. They missed it. Knowledge does not necessarily equate either to salvation. As far as we know, they never acted on it, talking about the Sadducees, Pharisees, and all. They did not go to Bethlehem. Some never did come to believe in him, but now there were some that did. Nicodemus, I believe, being certainly one of them. But what about us today? We know all of this. All of you are shaking your heads to a lot of what I say. You know it, but are we acting on it? Are we doing something with it? Otherwise, we'll fall into the same situation the chief priests and the scribes and Pharisees were in. We're just knowing it, acknowledging it. We really don't know. We're really not any far removed or any closer to God than they were. We don't want that. In 2 Peter, for this reason, he writes, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and knowledge self-control, and he talks about these qualities. And then he says this. I'm going to go all the way to the end of the book, and I want you to do it and compare it. I don't know why I'm doing that. I think I've got it on this. My goodness. Yeah, I got it right there. 2 Peter 3:18, look at what he says. He sums it up. I want to catch this. But grow in grace and in knowledge. He's linking the two together. That's what I want you to see. He said, yeah, grow in knowledge. That's good. But link it to all of these graces he talks about in the early part of the chapter. That's what he's trying to get us to do. That's what the Sadducees, Pharisees, scribes didn't do. They were stressed. They knew, but they wouldn't do nothing with it. Hearts wouldn't move. Wasn't troubled by it. They were lost. So don't equate knowledge with salvation if it's just knowledge. Don't do that. The Bible tells us, James 2:19, thou believest there is one God, thou doest well. The devils believe and tremble. You're no better off than the devils if you just know and don't act on it. Let's go on. The wise men were an example of spiritual diligence and faith. Diligence. How much did it cost them of time and money to make this travel, make this journey? We don't have a clue what we look for they come from. But they probably come at least a few hundred miles. I'm just picking that out of the sky. And it may come a lot further than that. We don't know. But it took time out of their lives to do it. They wanted to do it. They wanted to be there. They were earnestly trying to worship God. And God was in with them on it. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been that low star. You get me? There wouldn't have been that information. God was egging that thing on. Because I think he saw their hearts and their sincerity. Now, I'm out on a limb again. I know it, but just stay with me on it. I think that's what was going on. They were sincere. And they were diligent about it. We struggle sometimes on the evening service to drive across town. We gotta be careful. What makes us any different? No. Gotta be careful. What's 2,000 years? Nothing. Sin is still sin, and God's still against it, and he knows who's trying to follow him, and he knows who's not. Nothing's changed. Spiritual diligence and faith. Let me tell you about the wise men. They believed in Jesus Christ. They believed. You say anything you want. They believed in Jesus Christ. By their works you shall know them. They believed in Jesus Christ. They had faith. They had never seen him. When the scribes and chief priests were set right on top of the whole thing, and they were unbelieving. No faith. I don't know what they had. All these wise men saw was a little child on a mother's knee, or whatever. They got there without any miracles to star. But I think the star come after their conviction to go see him, okay? So the star is what got them there. It led them in a sense, but it wasn't motivated. They were already motivated. And without much teaching to persuade them that we're aware of, but undoubtedly they had some. We don't argue that at all. We just don't know. Yet when they got to him, the Bible says they fell down and worshiped him. That's the kind of faith that God delights in honoring. And that's what we need to have. God saw fit to record their example for us. We get to see it, look into these men's lives. Although we know very little about them, we know enough. And every time that this passage is read, their example of faith is honored. And I think this is something that, it's there. Jesus said unto him, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed, but blessed are those that have not seen and yet have believed. And that's the wise man. Yes,
Passage in 1 Peter 1:8, and those who have not seen him, you love him. And though you do not see him now, but believe in him, you greatly rejoice with joy.
yeah, that laps right into everything we said. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, that concludes my remarks, except I do have one more statement to make. Let me pick up my papers and you wait. Let you wait feels a little bit of like what's happening next. And it won't be a letdown. If you don't remember nothing else, I want you to remember my conclusion, okay? This is what I want you to remember. Nothing else is important as that. What we've been talking about was something happened 2,000 years ago. But my conclusion is about me and you and now and whether or not we go to heaven, okay? All right. That's it. The unit doesn't move. What? There it is. And I invitation song, Brother Mike.
9:05.
905. Wise men. Wise men. Still 60.
Let's stand.
Thank you.
Yield not to temptation, for yielding is sin. Each victory will help you some other to win. Fight manfully onward, dark passions subdue. Look ever to Jesus, He'll carry you through. Ask the Savior to help you, comfort, strengthen, and keep you. He is willing to aid you. He will carry you through. Thank you everyone for being here this evening.